Welcome to Nanuk Lodge, where today we're going to do all things bitters. I got this cookbook years ago for Christmas from Shelley, Bitters by Brad Thomas Parsons. It's a great book. It gives you all the history of bitters, gives you some recipes to make your own, gives you cocktail recipes and then food recipes to use the bitters that you make. I enjoyed playing with it, trying to understand what flavors and nuances I brought to the table and to the cocktails with bitters. I've made rhubarb bitters and cherry bitters. Today we're going to walk through how to make the Nanuk Lodge house bitters that I've tinkered with over the years and made as we talk through what bitters is all about. In the bar, I have Angostura bitters. That's kind of like if a bar only has one kind of bitters, that's what you have, Angostura. Been around forever. Peychaud's is another really famous one. Ratings number 6, it's an orange bitters. And then there's some really cool ones by a company called Scrappy's out of Seattle. Chocolate bitters and lavender bitters and cardamom bitters. So they're kind of fun to play. You know, adding a few drops to every drink, and it just adds a little bit of nuance. But to make bitters, you need something called a bittering agent, something that is going to add that bitterness to it. And so I get my bittering agents. This is gentian root from a company called Dandelion Botanicals. They're up in the Puget Sound area just outside of Seattle. They got an online site. They'll mail them to you. And you don't need much. These are little 1-ounce bags, and we're going to use like a quarter of a teaspoon. So you buy one of these, it'll last you forever to keep making bitters. To make bitters, you need some alcohol. For this version, because we've got all this brown spices and things going in there, I'm going to use bourbon. You want to use a high-proof liquor. So I'm using Iron Root out of Texas. It's 115 proof bourbon. It's good quality, but it's not the most expensive. But that high proof is going to suck all of the extracts and oils out of all of this stuff. If I was going to make something a little bit lighter, like a lavender bitters or a rhubarb bitters, I would start with a high proof vodka, something clear, and then let all that color come from that. The rest is all just different bits of flavoring that I've pulled together, as well as the bittering agents that we talked about. So we've got orange. I like a little bit of orange and brightness, so this is more orange than in the original recipe from the book. It uses orange in 2 different ways. I've got some dried orange peel here, which is really concentrated orange flavor, and then we're going to use the fresh orange peel to bring in that fresh orange brightness. Some dried cherries for some roundness and a little bit of sweetness to it. We've got our other spices. We've got allspice. We're going to add a cinnamon stick. I've got some cardamom, some star anise, and some cloves that we're going to use. And then our bittering agents. Cassia bark. We've got cassia chips, which is basically just more cinnamon chips broken up. And then we've got ginseng root. Gentian root? Ginseng root? I'm not sure. Ginseng root, I think, is how you say that. Again, all came from the botanical shop in Seattle, and I'll put their website in the recipe so you have that. But we're going to put all of this together and let it sit for like 2 weeks. And then you can come back and we're going to play with it a little bit more, and we're going to let it sit for another week. And then finally, after that week, we're going to come back. We're going to add a little bit of simple syrup, like a tablespoon to all of this. And this is going to make about 10 ounces of bitters that you can put in bottles, or you can put in little bottles. And we'll talk about that when we get to that point. Here's all our prep. Everything's measured out. I peeled the fresh orange. I want to be careful not to get too much white in there. You don't want the bitter pith, you just want the outside. Chopped up, doesn't have to be super fine, but chopped up the dried peel, the cinnamon stick, and the chips. For the vanilla bean, I split it down the middle halfway. Not all the way through, just like that, so that all those seeds and flavor can escape. And then we've got our other bittering agents. I cracked the cardamom pod just a little bit so the seeds came out. We're ready to put this all together, and it's very simple. You're going to put everything in this jar, and then we're going to pour the bourbon over the top. Let it sit for 2 weeks. You want to shake it every day, but that's it. All you have to do. And then we'll come back in a couple weeks, talk about what's happened in the jar, and do the next couple of steps. So let's mix it together. You can go the cloves and the star anise, the allspice and the cardamom, the cassia bark, cinnamon stick, cassia chips, our vanilla bean, the ginseng root, our dried cherries, get them all in there, our dried orange peel, and our fresh orange peel. Just like that. We'll pour our bourbon over the top. Swirl it around a little bit, get it all kind of done. And we're just gonna let it sit and do its thing and get all those oils from those spices and the oranges and let that bourbon just extract everything and bring great flavor. Catch you in a couple weeks. Good evening from Nanuk Lodge for part 2 of our bitters lesson. Our mixture's been sitting now for 2 weeks, and we're going to strain this off, and we're going to begin the second part of the flavor extraction of all of those wonderful solids by heating them up with a little bit of water, extract more flavor out of that, and then we'll let that sit for another week. I've got my cheesecloth lined strainer in a bowl, and I'm simply just going to pour this out. Okay, we now have 2 jars going. This is the product that's just the liquid that I strained out. And this is the water that we boiled with the other solids still. I'm gonna put a cover on this. We'll set them both aside and we'll continue to just swirl this every day for about a week, and then we'll come back and finish the bitters. Here we are, 1 week and a haircut later, and we are ready to finish the bitters project off. We've got the original jar with the alcohol in it. We've got the jar that's been sitting with the water and all the solids in it. We've got just a little bit of simple syrup that we'll use, and our spiffy little jars that we're gonna put everything in. It's got a little eyedropper, easy to control the bitters when you put in your drinks. Put a little label on there if you want, and finish the project off today. We're gonna strain this out one more time through the cheesecloth, mix it with this, just a tablespoon of simple syrup, and we'll put it in our little bottles. Nanuk Lodge house bitters are complete. I got 6 of these little 1-ounce bottles, and then just a little bit, maybe about 5 ounces left over that I'll keep in the bar and use to fill the bottles. But these are great little gifts. I'll put a nice little label on there for them, and then be able to give them away so people can have their old fashions or Manhattans in their house with a little bit of Nanuk Lodge love. Thanks for tuning in to Cooking at Nanuk Lodge. Please subscribe if you're enjoying these videos, and we'll catch you next time.